Welcome to the Unlist. As the title suggests, I'm making a video that dispels and debunks a lot of the false information and assumptions people make in the online fragrance community regarding fragrances, releases, marketing, reformulations, all the stupid little pedantic shit that people obsess over. And I've done individual videos on things like reformulations, batches. Like I've tackled each one of these, so this isn't going to really retread much of that. I've got individual videos for that. Some of those going all the way back to the first year I started, so we're talking 3 seasons worth now. So I can't tell you which episodes they are. You'll just have to scroll through each year's worth of videos and find it for yourself. Not a big deal. Okay, you've got a finger that's capable of doing this, right? You can scroll through my videos just fine. At least they all have the same thumbnail, separated by season, so you know what year you're looking at. But this video in particular is more just covering specific things that are perpetuated as fact that are not. And people make assumptions, they do mental gymnastics, and it gets really tiring because I watch people literally go hysterical and then like lose their minds, either over purchasing product in panic or attacking people, like really angrily just attacking people, having an almost, and I've made mention of this to my friends, but having an almost religious cult-like mindset regarding perfume, right? Like it's a life or death thing that they have to defend vehemently, right? Like it's an honor of an object because the object has feelings, has a sense of pride or integrity, and you must defend it at all costs when its name is besmirched, and all other kinds of stupid stuff like that. And a lot of this just really bizarre, problematic, and quite frankly troubling behavior, this unhinged behavior could all just be solved with a little bit of good old-fashioned research, using the Googles to look things up. Cut out the AI stuff because that's going to lead you astray, but actual research, you can find these answers in half an hour maybe. Is that worth it to you to be calm and more collected and not hysterical and screaming and wanting to beat somebody up and other stupid stuff over bottles of smelly water, fucking perfume? Christ. So anyways, let's get started. The first big myth that gets perpetuated all the time is that note pyramids are ingredients. And whenever note pyramids change, either things get added to, things get taken away, different materials that create the same accords are selected to be in the note pyramid because note pyramids are marketing, and when the materials are switched out, it is all in an attempt to coerce someone into buying the fragrance. So if they think listing lavender, bergamot, geranium is no longer going to attract someone to buy the fragrance, they might switch out bergamot for Calabrian bergamot, make it sound fancier, right? They might switch out lavender for lavandin, right? Sounds a little more scientific, more medicinal. They may get rid of that geranium and put rose in there because guess what? Rose and geranium often reach the same conclusion when mixed with lavender. Or they could put rose geranium in there. They could do a number of things. So they could call a material ambergris and then call it ambroxan because maybe it was ambroxan all along. or they could call it something else like sea musk. But when you see the note pyramid change in a fragrance, it's not ingredients changing. And a changing note pyramid should in no way, shape, or form make you believe that the fragrance formula has changed, right? It's not even necessarily triggering a reformulation. It's literally just them changing up the marketing. A lot of fragrances these days don't even have accurate note pyramids. You see 3 notes, a single top note, a single heart note, a single base note. And when you smell that fragrance in person at the counter, you're like, wow, this is way more complex than just lemon, ginger, tonka, right? You smell that and there's sweetness in there. You get floral notes in there. There's some kind of woodiness in the base, some vague kind of ambery feeling. And lemon, ginger, tonka does not cover that. Not even begins to cover that. So it's like, okay, so this note pyramid, if you want to call it a pyramid, 3 materials, is bullshit. So right there, without even having to dig any further, you should realize it's just bullshit. It's marketing. And this particular one is most relevant to everyone that was freaking out when the Dior page for Sauvage suddenly turned up with a couple different keynotes or twisted change in nomenclature in the note pyramid market copy on the website. Dior website one day switched out bergamot for Calabrian bergamot, added something like driftwood that was never featured in the note pyramid before, switched out one kind of pepper for another. Okay, I think Sichuan pepper slid in and pink pepper slid out. So it was pink pepper, now it's Sichuan pepper. It was bergamot, now it's Calabrian bergamot. And then they added driftwood, which was never there before. But if you look closely, the fragrance market copy still mentions Francois Damasci as the guy behind the creation of the special bergamot accord sourced from Calabria. Dip-de-dop-de-doo. It's just a rewrite, guys. It's just a market copy rewrite. The only thing that's actually changed with Dior Sauvage, at least the eau de toilette, eau de parfum, is that they switched over to the refillable bottles that the parfum already had and the elixir already had, and I'm assuming Eau Forte also has. But those older bottles were originally in sealed bottles that you couldn't refill. So they switched them to refillable bottles, and thus they took the opportunity to go in once they switched out to the refillable bottles and just clean up the market copy a little bit, make it a little more fancy, okay, a little more enticing. But it's still Francois Damasci pen fragrance. It's not the new house perfumer, Francis Kurkdjian. So far, Francis Kurkdjian has only officially done Eau Forte. He completely redid the Dior Homme Parfum, so I understand that is different. I've smelled that. I can confirm it's different. But people going off of just a couple edited note pyramid changes, and suddenly you've got articles on iFragrance about all new Dior Sauvage Eau de Toilette 2025, all new Dior Eau Sauvage Eau de Parfum 2025, based on nothing. Like, and then the little blurb they wrote looks AI generated to begin with. They just took the information, told the AI to put a spin on, here are the old notes from 2015, here are the new notes for 2025. During, like I said, the bottle refresh, they changed the bottle, make it look like market copy, and then we can call it a new, oh look, they reformulated Sauvage, they've discontinued the old Sauvage, and then you've got YouTubers making videos going, panic, panic, oh, so Dior Sauvage is getting discontinued, The eau de toilette is getting discontinued. Literally most popular fragrance in the world. The literal best-selling fragrance in the world. It's getting discontinued. Oh no, they're bringing out a new one. It's going to be different. You better hurry up and buy 15 million fucking bottles of the old one while you still can, and hoard them in your house like TLC hoarders, and be even more problematic and ridiculous. And based off of what? All of this based off of a few changes in the note pyramid on the fucking website. Dior has not announced any redoing of Sauvage. They have not announced any recomposition. When they did Dior Homme in 2020, they announced that was a new fragrance. Did they not? They announced it was new. When they did Dior Homme Parfum, same thing. 2024 last year, they announced that was a whole new fragrance. Changing some notes in the note pyramid is not a reformulation. It's not a relaunch. Whenever you guys see that, it's not a new fragrance. That is the big one. Now, to a lesser extent, bottle changes. To a lesser extent, when you see bottle changes, does not necessarily mean the fragrance has changed. They've just changed the packaging. They decided to go with a different bottle. And to prove this, I bought the original version of this fragrance, which is this one, and then the stubby short one, which I gave to my roommate because I don't need 2 bottles of this. 1 bottle is a lifetime supply. I don't wear it enough to need 2. But the short stubby bottle of Black XS, the short stubby bottle of Black XS smells the same as this long one. And I bought that to prove, because everyone was saying that because the XS line was moved to these shorter, more squat bottles, that they were all new fragrances, because they were in different bottles. It's the same thing with the market copy. The same thing with the note pyramid. They changed the notes, new fragrance. They changed the bottle, new fragrance. No, it's not. It smelled the same to me. And I A and B them quite often, and I could not tell I was wearing different fragrances. Now here's what's really funny. Sometimes brands themselves are guilty of not being clear about what changes mean what. So there was a case, for example, where Giorgio Armani changed the bottle of Armani Code Eau de Toilette to, again, a refillable bottle, borrowing the bottle style of the Parfum and the Eau de Parfum, which were the square bottles with the little cap. The old ones were those concave shaped bottles. That was the original Armani Code bottle, and the Eau de Toilette was still using that bottle. They switched it to the same square bottle that the newer flankers have, and everyone screamed up and down that it was a new fragrance. And I tried it, and I smelled it, and I'm like, no, it's the same fragrance, and I still don't like it because I don't like Armani Code. I was like, no, this is the same crap. Now, on the other hand, when Armani changed Acqua di Gio, the Eau de Toilette version, the original one from '96, when they changed that one, they did change the bottle. But they also made mention that it was a modernized fragrance, that they changed some things with the fragrance, the smell. They literally told you, this smells different. This is the classic updated for a modern man. That's telling you they did some changes under the hood. And sure enough, I smelled the original Eau de Toilette, which I own, and the new one with the frosted white that transitions to clear, so it's a two-tone bottle. And sure enough, there were differences in the musk profile. I actually did shorts about that. You can watch the shorts if you want. So sometimes when the bottle changes, it's not a difference in the fragrance, it's just a new bottle. And then other times it is. So the brands themselves are guilty of not being clear, but at least Armani made it a point to say that the eau de toilette was getting refreshed. It wasn't just getting a new bottle, it was getting literally refreshed. Dior Homme, before the 2020 version, underwent a slight refresh as well. Those of you who are old enough to remember, the silver stem bottles came first, 2005 until about 2010. So 5 years of that formula, created by Olivier Polge, who now works for Chanel. Well, Francois Demachy, who was doing perfume for Dior, became their house perfumer and was given the task of taking all the formulas and using chromatography, figuring them out, reverse engineering them, and recreating them. Why? And I've mentioned this many times in other videos. To avoid paying Givaudan, Firmenich, or any of those other major players, to avoid paying them for formula. Because when you hire an oil house to make your perfume for you, they own the formula, and you can only order it in kilos and then have it compounded into perfume, finished product to sell. But you cannot get the actual formula so you can make it yourself. So the only way to do that is to basically reverse engineer it. And Demachy had to do that. And thus, he took the opportunity with certain fragrances to change them to his liking. He was never a big fan of Dior Homme, as Hedi Slimane and Olivier Polge created it. He made it a bit drier, made it a bit woodier, toned down the vanilla somewhat, turned up the vetiver and the cedarwood notes, made it a bit more nominally masculine, I suppose. Still iris fragrance, still cocoa fragrance, but more just nominally more masculine. And that became the black stem, introduced in 2011. My favorite version of the classic Dior Homme is that black stem. A lot of y'all like the silver one better. Okay, it's sweeter, more vanilla, more power to you. I'm not a big vanilla guy, so the black stem for me works better. But that was a similar situation where it was both a bottle change and a tweak. And back then, they also mentioned that it's been revised. They said they revised the fragrance. That's the big takeaway here, guys. The brands tell you when they revise the fragrance. If it's the same stuff in the bottle, even if the bottle changes, even if the note pyramid changes, if any other packaging or marketing elements change, but they tell you it's the same fragrance you know and love, they're not trying to lie to you. They want you to keep buying the fragrance. And they do that with the best sellers. Doesn't mean it's not reformulated because of restrictions or changes in materials or whatever, but from a compositional standpoint, it's the same fragrance. It's maybe a different formula of the same fragrance, but it wasn't recomposed. They tell you when they recompose the fragrance, because then the old version is either phased completely out, renamed and moved to another collection. Okay? So, Le Gallienne did that with Eau Noble. They made a new version of Eau Noble and renamed the old one something else. So, same kind of thing. They tend to tell you this stuff. So, two big myths, two huge myths right there, dispelled for you. Note pyramid changes does not mean fragrance change. Bottle changes does not always mean fragrance change. Okay, reformulations are a chemical thing that happens in the background. If they're going to reformulate a fragrance, they're going to reformulate it and not tell you. But if they make a conscious change to the way it smells, like they make a deliberate change to the scent of the fragrance, not a reformulation, but they actually recompose the fragrance, they're not just going to change some notes in the pyramid. They're not just going to give you a different bottle. They will come out and tell you. They will tell you this is a new fragrance. And why? Because they either want to sell you on it being new. Oh, it's a new version. Come get the new version. It's better, right? They're either doing that because they want you to buy the new version, or they're doing that as a courtesy for the old customers so they don't buy the wrong one. Because that's not going to work either. If they replace the fragrance with a new formula and just not say anything, that creates backlash. People get pissed off and they return fragrances, right? So they have to tell you that. They're not just going to be like, okay, well, it's strawberry, but now it's raspberry. But we're going to call it strawberry. We're going to keep calling it strawberry, but now it's raspberry. I'm not going to do that. Okay? That's as much money as they make and as cynical as they can be. The brands can be very cynical. If they make a conscious change to the formula, they're going to declare that change. They're not just going to change some notes in the pyramid or take your blue bottle and replace it with a purple one. They're going to do a little more than that. So dispel those myths. And another situation. Sometimes the name changes too, but that's more rare. Changing the name of a fragrance is more of an Etat Libre d'Orange kind of thing. They're more known for doing that. Tom of Finland became went under a different name. I'm trying to think of what it was renamed to. So let's see. Clean Suede. Yeah, Tom of Finland was renamed Clean Suede. But yeah, some brands will change names like that, but even then it's not a different fragrance. But like, here's another one. See this? This. And this are actually the same fragrance. Some people are going to say, oh no, but this is Jaguar for Men 88, right? When this came out. This is 1988. This is 2000 and whatever. They're different fragrances. No, they're not. For all intents and purposes, they are the same fragrance. And here, let me smell this one. Okay. Now I'm going to smell this one. Okay. Clearly, they have been repackaged and reformulated. This is repackaged and reformulated. This is the original one. This one's made by Lalique Group. This one is made by, well, gee golly, I don't know who made the original one. I think it was Cosmoprod or Eurocos or one of those guys made the original one way back in the 80s. But yeah, no, it was not. They're not considered different fragrances. They're just considered older and newer. And yeah, like I said, there has been a lot of reformulation going on. To say that there is not a difference would be a foolish thing, and I would never tell you that there's not a difference. There is clearly a difference, but they are functionally representing the same fragrance. That's the big takeaway here. There's just been a lot of change in materials and such between this one, and ownership between this one and this one. So they're not different fragrances. They're just different bottles of the same fragrance. Hey guys, another big myth. And then last but not least, y'all are really not going to like me on this one. But changing the concentration of a fragrance doesn't always mean it's going to be a stronger or weaker version of that same fragrance. And I know Chanel likes to market a lot of their stuff that way. Okay, and Dior has done it too. You know, the eau de parfum, the eau de toilette, the parfum. You get it in your head, oh, the parfum is stronger, it's going to perform better. No, it's just a different fragrance. It's a variation on the weaker one, possibly, but it's not just more oil and less alcohol. It is never that. Okay? Very seldom does that actually work. Very seldom. So, if you have something like, for example, Abbey Rouge cologne, and this is a good classic example. Okay, the Abbey Rouge eau de cologne, which I have. Let's see, where is it? Where's my bottle of that? Oh, it's in here someplace. Not sure exactly. Oh yeah, here it is. This. My Abbey Rouge eau de cologne. Okay, this is a very vintage specimen from 1976. Very old. And then there's this one. Eau de toilette. You would be forgiven for mistakenly believing that this is just a stronger version of this. No, they are not the same. They are similar, yes, okay. I won't say that they aren't both interpretations of Abbey Rouge, but when Jean-Paul Guerlain created this one in the 60s, originally, he made it for a different market. He made it for a market where men were into lighter, more discreet fragrances. In the 60s, mid-60s, guys didn't want big, heavy powerhouses. That wouldn't come until later. By the 80s, men weren't wearing true colognes anymore. They were wearing mostly men's cologne that were actually amped up to toilette, or in some cases, even as strong as parfum concentrations, but labeled as men's cologne all the same. But there was a revision, and he both revised Vetiver and Abbey Rouge to be proper eau de toilettes. But in doing so, he made some changes. You notice when you smell this one that it's more patchouli, more resinous, a little more vanilla, a little thicker, a little sweeter, not as dry, not as light and transparent. So yes, it is stronger, but it does not smell exactly the same. So don't always think if you're buying a higher concentration of something that you are literally just getting a stronger version, because you are not. You certainly are not. And that is a big mistake to make. Be an expensive one too, because a lot of times those higher concentration varieties, which are really just flankers, at the end of the day they're just flankers, a lot of those can be a lot more expensive than their eau de toilette or whatever counterparts. So gotta watch out for that. Don't always think, oh, I'm getting the elixir version. It's even more strong than the parfum. No, it's a whole different fragrance, my dude. And some brands are a little bit more obvious with it than others when you buy, for example, fragrances from another line, like the Pacha de Cartier eau de toilette versus the Pacha de Cartier parfum. They are entirely different fragrances. They are only tangentially similar. Share the same bottle, share the same name, a couple of the same notes are shared, but otherwise they're unrelated fragrances. So flankers are flankers, is what I'm saying. And I've already discussed flankers, how some flankers can be a different take on the same thing, or an unrelated thing sharing the line's name and bottle for marketing reasons, but you should really just perceive concentrations as flankers. It is so much easier just to see concentrations as flankers. And you can even do this exercise with classic fragrances. You can do it with Shalimar. You can do it with Number 5. You can smell Shalimar Eau de Cologne, Shalimar Eau de Toilette, Shalimar Parfum in a tiny little bottle. You can do it with Chanel Number 5, the original discontinued cologne, the Eau de Toilette, Eau de Parfum, which was made in the 80s, the original Parfum. They all have different shades, different qualities. They are not just weak, medium, strong. Not like Slurpee cups where it's small, medium, large. It's not like that. So, okay, guys. Myth busting for you. Okay? If you want to get into the weeds and do batch codes and production runs and figure out, which bottles were made by Sanofi, which ones were Charles of the Ritz, which ones were this, that, and the other, get into the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, you can do that. If you want to really get that pedantic about it and find out when there were formula changes, when there were recompositions done, when all the different variations that drive people nuts in this community, you want to go down that rabbit hole and do that, you can. I don't want you to, but I also can't stop you. However, at least now you know that note pyramids, bottle redesigns, things like that don't denote a new version of a fragrance. And concentrations are never just concentrations. They are really just flankers in a lazy way, a flankers in disguise. So hopefully some of you won't take some of this to heart and think I'm attacking you. Some of you are going to anyway, because that's just how it is. But I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just trying to save you from yourself and buying a whole lot of something that you don't need because you're worried about it, because it's a different concentration or a different bottle or it has a different note in the note pyramid than what you remember. You see, and the hysteria thus continues, trying to avert you having these panic attacks. All right. So this has been the Unlist. Thanks for watching.